All right, so today we're diving deep, right? We're going to be focusing on one specific event, one specific set of information to try to understand what happened.
We're putting on our detective hats today.
We are. And the event that we're going to be deep diving into is the mysterious death of a maritime self-defense force officer in Tokushima Prefecture, Japan, back in December of 1999.
Wow.
You might not be familiar with the Japanese self-defense forces or Tokushima Prefecture, but that's okay. The important thing is we're going to be talking about this event and the questions that came up surrounding it.
Right. This is one of those events where the initial conclusion that was given didn't really quite add up, and there are a lot of lingering questions over the years.
Yeah. And our primary source today is the Japanese Wikipedia page on what is called the Tokushima Self-Defense Force Officer Mysterious Death Incident. And right off the bat, even the Wikipedia page says there might be some issues with the information on the page. They say a lot of it's from a single source, there's not a lot of citations, and there are a number of potential issues with the information. So we have to be very careful going into this and knowing that there might be some uncertainty.
Absolutely.
Our mission today is to understand the sequence of events, the questions that were raised about the initial suicide ruling, and the efforts of the family.
Okay, so let's jump into it right. It's December 25th, 1999.
Christmas Day.
Christmas Day. We have this 33-year-old officer. He's in the Maritime Self-Defense Force, stationed at the First Service School. But he's home on leave. He's at his family home in Tokushima Prefecture.
So he's not on active duty, he's just home visiting.
Exactly. And on this day, he went for a drive with his girlfriend, dropped her off at her home, and then subsequently went missing. So they were together, they were out, went back to her place, and then poof, gone.
Gone. Vanished. And soon after, the Tokushima Prefectural Police found his car abandoned on the road. And here's a really important point. The police at this time did not consider this to be a criminal matter, and they only contacted the family to let them know that they found the car.
Okay, so if I found an empty car, that would immediately ring alarm bells. That's a little strange.
Yeah.
Why would they not think that there was any kind of criminal activity involved in that situation?
And we can speculate, but it is an interesting piece of information.
Yeah.
Now, just 2 days later, on December 27th, his body was found. The body was found on the riverbed of the Fukui River in Anan City.
So he was found in the river.
He was found in the river.
Okay.
The police concluded suicide and closed the investigation.
All right, case closed.
But the media and the family of the deceased uncovered a number of suspicious points that contradicted the suicide ruling.
This is off in the way.
It is.
You have a nice, clean ruling like this, but then when you start digging into the details, especially when you have the family who knew this person better than anyone else looking into it, things don't add up.
They don't, and they kept pushing. They requested an investigation on August 18th, 2000 to the prefectural police, June 27th, 2001 to the Tokushima District Public Prosecutor's Office, and then again on February 21st, 2003 to the prefectural police.
So they didn't let this go. They
Yeah.
really kept pushing to make sure that things were looked at more carefully.
Yeah, and the police actually conducted 2 reinvestigations, but on November 19th, 2003, the police again concluded there was no suspicion of murder.
So even after looking at it again, same conclusion.
Same conclusion. So on October 8th, 2004, they appealed to what's called the Committee for the Inquest of Prosecution. This is a group of citizens who review decisions made by prosecutors, and they make a decision.
Okay.
But on April 20th, 2005, they decided that non-indictment was appropriate. However, as our Wikipedia source tells us, the family is continuing to investigate.
Wow, they haven't given up.
Mm.
So what are some of these suspicious details that really led to this continued search for truth?
Let's start off with damage to the car. A scratch was found on the roof of the officer's car. Police claimed it was from being moved by a tow truck after an accident. However, it is considered unusual for such damage to occur during standard towing procedures.
So a scratch on the roof of the car. Now police say, well, that happened when it was being towed away. But anyone who knows anything about towing would say, well, that's not how cars get scratched during towing.
It doesn't quite add up.
Right.
Then the body was found 4.2 meters away from the bridge from which he supposedly jumped. Experts suggest it's unlikely a person could jump that far horizontally, especially considering the bridge had an 85-centimeter high railing, making a running jump virtually impossible. Even world-class standing long jumpers only achieve around 3.5 meters.
So you're telling me that they think that he jumped from this bridge, but he landed over 4 meters away from the bridge.
Yeah.
And this bridge has a railing that's almost a meter high.
Yeah, so he's not getting a running jump. He's got to climb over this thing.
How do you jump that far? Like, world-class athletes can't even jump that far.
Exactly. And this officer, we don't know if he was a world-class athlete, but it seems unlikely.
Seems unlikely.
Yeah. No fingerprints of the officer were found on the railing of the bridge, which was not low enough to climb over without using your hands.
So he climbed over this almost meter-high railing without using his hands.
That's what the evidence would suggest.
Or he was levitated over.
Right.
I don't know.
There were also no footprints found of the officer between where the car was parked and the bridge.
So he floated from the car to the bridge as well.
Maybe.
This is getting weird.
It is getting weird. A judicial autopsy at the University of Tokushima Faculty of Medicine suggested the cause of death was a rupture of the thoracic aorta
Oh, wow.
occurring before the fall.
So he was already injured fatally before he went into the water.
That's what it seems like. Now, police initially stated the aorta was damaged by the car's airbag due to an accident during his return home, but the location of the supposed accident was in the opposite direction of his home, and the distance between the alleged accident site and the body's discovery site was 8 kilometers.
Wait, so he was in a car accident that caused this aorta injury, but the accident happened in the opposite direction of his house, and then his body was found 8 kilometers away from the accident site. So did he drive 8 kilometers after this accident that caused the airbag to go off?
That's what they're saying, yeah.
With a ruptured aorta.
Which is a huge injury.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't seem very likely. And then doubts were also raised about whether an airbag deployment alone could cause such a severe injury. So even the nature of the injury itself doesn't line up.
Yeah, the airbag going off is not going to cause that kind of injury.
And then a doctor commissioned by the family suggested the officer landed on his buttocks, not his back, if he fell from the bridge.
So even the way that they're saying he fell, the way he landed, doesn't make sense with the injury.
It really doesn't. So we have all of that. Those are just like the physical evidence, what we're seeing. The motive for suicide that the police gave was that the officer was frustrated over the car accident and damage. However, here's another little tidbit. The prefectural police informed the self-defense forces that the death was ruled a suicide before the results of the judicial autopsy were known.
So before they even had the medical evidence, they already concluded suicide and informed other people.
They did, yeah. It's a little hasty.
That's a little weird.
It is a little weird. There's also some missing evidence. The family observed a circular indentation on the jacket the officer was believed to be wearing when his body was found. However, this indentation was gone when the jacket was returned by the police after forensic analysis.
Oh.
Police later stated that such an indentation never existed.
So there was a mark on the jacket, but now they're saying that mark never existed.
Yeah, it's a little, again, it doesn't quite add up.
That's really troubling. It makes you wonder what else might be missing.
Yeah, and this last point is really interesting. Residents in the area frequently witness violent acts by motorcycle gangs, bozuzoku.
Bozuzoku.
On the day of the incident, a white sedan similar to the officer's car was reportedly seen being chased by a bozuzoku member wielding what appeared to be an iron pipe. And during the reinvestigation, a truck driver reportedly provided eyewitness testimony.
Wow, so there are actually people who saw things happening that day, but maybe that information wasn't taken into account in the initial investigation.
Right, and it suggests that maybe he was pursued, maybe there was some other party involved.
That adds a whole new layer to the story.
It really does, it really does. Now, some related material from our source. The officer's younger sister wrote a book called My Older Brother Didn't Commit Suicide, published in 2002, so she's very adamant about her feelings on this. And our Wikipedia source also mentions a case called the Ikeda Dam murder case, where a murder was initially ruled a suicide, but the perpetrator later confessed after the statute of limitations had expired.
So in the Ikeda Dam case, someone was murdered, but at first it was ruled a suicide.
Yeah.
And then later on, the person who did it confessed, but it was too late for them to be prosecuted.
Exactly. They couldn't do anything because too much time had passed.
That's really scary. It shows that it can happen. You can have a murder that looks like a suicide, and it might take a long time for the truth to come out, and sometimes it's too late.
Yeah, it really highlights the potential for misclassification of deaths. And this isn't to say that that's definitely what happened in the case we're discussing, but it does lend, more questions, I think, to this story.
Yeah, it shows that it is possible.
It is possible, yeah.
It makes you wonder if it's more common than we think.
Yeah.
All right, so what are the key takeaways here? It seems like there are a lot of unanswered questions surrounding the death of this Maritime Self-Defense Force officer. The police ruled it a suicide, But there's a lot of physical evidence that just doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, there are a lot of discrepancies.
And the family has been fighting to find out the truth, but it's been a long and frustrating process.
Yeah, they've really been pushing for more investigation, and they've faced a lot of roadblocks along the way. And this specific event, it really highlights the importance of thorough investigation. What happens when there are these lingering unanswered questions? It really impacts the family and friends, and it makes you realize that sometimes the initial assumptions might not be correct.
And sometimes it takes a lot of effort, a lot of pushing and prodding to even get people to look at things a second time.
Yeah. So, for all of you listening out there, what are your thoughts on this case? What are the most compelling pieces of evidence that you think suggest that maybe the initial conclusion was wrong? And what does this case tell us about the challenges of seeking justice and understanding the truth in complex situations? Even when the official investigations are closed, sometimes there are still so many questions. It's something to think about.
Yeah, and it makes you appreciate the persistence of this family who has never given up. It's a story that really stays with you.
It really does.
It makes you think about all the cases out there where maybe we don't have all the answers yet, and maybe we need to keep asking questions.
Yeah, and that sometimes the truth is a lot more complicated than we might initially think. And it's definitely something worth considering as we go about our lives and as we hear about events like this happening in the world around us.
Absolutely.
All right, well, this has been a fascinating deep dive, and we really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for listening.
We'll catch you next time.
See you then.